And thank you for joining us tonight. Keeping campuses safe. It's a goal for school administrators everywhere. And today, here in East Texas, a large group of them got together with law enforcement to talk about that very subject. KLTV7's Bob Hallmark has more tonight from the School Safety Summit.
Law enforcement, school superintendents, and security experts met at Region 7 in Kilgore for new information and strategies to stop violence targeting schools.
We're discussing those causes, we're discussing the underlying concerns and assumptions, and we're also discussing solutions.
In light of past shootings in Santa Fe and more recently in Uvalde, new research presented showed what may be contributing not only to the motive of shooters, but what may be contributing to an increase in suicide rate.
Think about the science behind some of those things, the violent video games, the sleep deprivation, all of those things, and what they are doing to us and doing to our kids scientifically.
Our teens is thinking about different things in lives and how that impacts how decisions that they're making.
25 years ago, we weren't talking about this. Columbine changed the world forever in terms of school safety.
Law enforcement and administrators came as far away as Center and Lufkin to participate in the summit, hoping to gain new information on how best to defend and protect schools from violent acts.
When parents and guardians send their kids to school, their safety has to be our #1 priority. Having armed staff members in your district, and so we have several of those, and we've seen a lot of districts move to that.
Officers on property is the first line of defense.
With the threat very real, a promise to do more to protect.
And again, and again, and again, we failed those children, we failed those parents. We will not fail again.
Bob Hallmark, KLTV 7 News.
Now, some school districts use the Guardian Plan, referenced by Chief Avra, which includes voluntarily arming trained staff as a line of defense.